Hello, this is Barry at Blanchardstown Library, and I'm very lucky today. In fact, we're all very lucky because I'm joined on by via video by Rita O'Donovan, and many of you may know who Rita is already. Rita has done many events with us in Fingal Libraries about mindfulness, and we thought that with the current situation, I think mindfulness is something that we could all benefit from. So we've invited Rita along to maybe give us a few tips about what we can do to get through this current period and mind our mental health. So how are you, Rita?
Hi Barry, lovely to be here this afternoon, sunny afternoon that it is. I'd like to just start off by thanking Blanchardstown Library for inviting me to share, and that's the word that comes to me really, and I love doing it. So my years of being in this area, maybe 25, 30 now, I just love sharing. So here's another opportunity. Within all the chaos, there's something like this. So I'm delighted to be here, and thank you.
And for people who don't know you, haven't seen you speaking at the library, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. As I say, I'm I guess, going on nearly 30 years. I know you won't believe it, in doing this kind of work from stress management, mindfulness. Oh my goodness, a whole host. I spent at least 20 years in one particular field, and that was as senior therapist in our house, which was a cancer support centre. It's still going. And there I came across people with all sorts of challenges, mental, emotional, physical, the whole gambit. And they were very interesting years. And it, for me particularly, to see people, when they'd arrive in a certain state, and after a period of time, to have a sense of themselves. It might be just a small thing like engaging with their practitioner or their specialist, knowing how to ask a question without feeling very anxious. So sometimes it was small things, other things maybe much larger. But it kind of was a very grounding experience over the years, and I'm very grateful myself for having the experience and meeting so many people along the pathway. And so then I decided it was time to change, and to go out into the commercial world. And I guess, my feeling on that was, well, why wait until something happens? Support people and let them know what they can do and help themselves regarding their health. And why do we have to wait for a challenge? So basically, that's a synopsis of what I've been doing.
And you spoke there about mental health, you spoke about anxiety, about minding yourself, and at the moment I suppose we're all going through a very strange time, very stressful, a lot of anxiety around. Can you maybe start off with about the importance of kind of minding your own mental health at the moment?
I will, but if I could just start with a belief that I have, and that is that there's, what's that saying? There's a silver lining around every cloud. And we may be in the cloud at the moment, which is, a pretty stressful place for a lot of people. But I see the silver lining in a lot of these situations. So I suppose I would look at nature to start off with, and I would say to myself, well, look at nature, it's recovering itself as we go on. You see the air is cleaner, you're reading it in the newspaper. For myself, I'm out in nature a lot, birds are singing. There's something about nature now, it's such a pleasure that, and we're listening to nature, and it's reorganizing itself, if you like, nearly its own health. And we too can take, I think we should look at nature and say, well, what can we do? Because we do carry our own pollution. It's as simple as that. But here's an opportunity where we can actually say, well, okay, now we're locked in a little bit, we don't like that. But we have a time on our hands to, slow things down. That's what I would say. We're slowing things down. We may not like it, but we're not used to it. And if we take a look back and say, well, how has our life been? For most people, they would say, well, it's been very busy. It's been quite stressful. A lot of people would say, well, I've been on autopilot, like for an awful lot of my life. And these are really questions that we have to bring to the forefront and say, well, what was my life really on about? And what would I like to change about that now? So here's the opportunity we're getting to change and to slow it all down and to really kind of live our lives with what I would call quality, more quality. And that's where I think we're at the moment. So I guess on a practical level, I always say to my clients and groups and that, I would say, do you actually know yourself? Do you know your system? Just start with your physical system. What do I know about my system? I asked a question to people there recently, do you know about your organs? No. Usually it was the reply. But here we are. I'm going to start off with something very simple, the central nervous system, Barry. That's something that, to me, is a hugely important part that we should know about ourselves and our system. We have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. They're two branches of the central nervous system. And, it's actually quite fascinating the way we're actually built. We have the sympathetic, which is fight, flight, and freeze. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll give you an example of that, if you like, to make it kind of very simple. Yeah. The other day there, I was walking out in my bare feet. The small toe hit the side of the door. Can you get the sense of what that might feel like?
Absolutely, yeah. I only dropped something on my foot today.
Right,
so
but it's just interesting because straight away my system went into fight, flight, or freeze. The freeze part, straight away, the muscular, skeletal, everything kind of froze. The fight part was what? What do you think that was? I wanted to blame someone. So these systems are really, they're when they're triggered, they're right up there. And so we have to kind of have an idea when we get into that, at that state. And for most of us, we're being triggered, at various points during the day. It might be a small trigger, it might be a bigger trigger, but that stress response is there in our system. Now we need to educate ourselves regarding how it works, because when I'm triggered, the stress response, what's released? The chemicals, adrenaline, what else? The system is in a heightened state, isn't it? So I think the first step I would say to people is, try and kind of get an idea of how that system of yours, the central nervous system, the fight-flight system, how aware are you when it kicks in, when it starts to trigger? That's a real big one for most of us. We're walking around with our system the whole time.
Half the battle is recognizing the signals, isn't it? And then you can catch yourself. You can say, oh, I can feel that happening. And to change your response to that.
Yeah, it's what we call in mindfulness terms to be the observer, to be the witness. I'm aware of. Normally, we're actually caught into the situation very quickly. So the system is in fight, flight, or freeze, right? But when we take even a step back or we're a little bit mindful, we say, here's what's happening. It may trigger a response. A response for a lot of people is, I don't feel this, I'll go to the fridge, I'll have something to eat. So we kind of get addicted to behaviors as well. And if we can just be a little bit more mindful around that, it's quite extraordinary. Awareness, my self-awareness is when I'm throwing that light, if you like, it's a beam on the behavior and pattern that, that's coming up through this stressful situation. And we can take steps into it. We can take what I call little baby steps and say, I'm starting to notice that. Then I may be into it. Then I'll notice again. But each time I begin to notice, there's a change in the response to that. So I love the idea that, I'm taking responsibility for my own health. I'm talking about conscious healthcare here. And I think it's going to be key in the future, conscious healthcare. We kind of, we're used to going outside of ourselves, getting, towards the medical community, wanting other people to fix us. Now, I'm big into, supporting. I think the medical community is great. But if we play our part side by side with that, we actually are changing something radical in ourselves. To say that actually this is my system, I know how it works, it's empowering in its own right.
And thankfully, in recent times, people seem to be far more aware of mental health than they used to be. I mean, and especially speaking as a man, a lot of men in particular, it wasn't done to talk about your mental health. And thankfully now things like mindfulness and even just talking to other people is becoming a lot more, it's now it's the done thing, whereas before something we just didn't talk about it.
My sense always was there was a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And I think it's in the culture itself. I think it's in our history. But I just love the idea that I'm participating in my own biology. I just think it's where it has to go to. Rather than the sense of blame or they should or somebody should be looking after. It's sitting into the empowerment of yourself. It's a mighty nice feeling to have that I can recognize. And I would have, over the years with people that were challenged with their health, they would take those baby steps, even being comfortable to go into, as I said, their specialists and say, I don't understand what you're saying. So we can all take small steps in whatever way it arises. But for me, even just recognizing that my central nervous system is a communication system. And it communicates with all the other systems, the immune system, the respiratory system. And to know that, even when I talk about breathing, it's not just a breath. No, I'm actually changing something inside of me, and I have the capability of doing that. Yeah. So this is the powerfulness of being mindful.
And let's maybe have a look at this in kind of a practical sense and kind of look closer to home. So at the moment, I mean, life can be stressful anyway. But at the moment, for a lot of us, it's particularly stressful. A lot of us are stuck at home. We've children, we're working from home, we're maybe looking after older parents. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people are fearful for their jobs. There's financial stresses at the moment. People are afraid of the virus itself. So there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety around people at the moment. Are tense. You can feel it, and I mean, so maybe we look at kind of close to home. Is there anything we can kind of do in our everyday, do you think, to kind of help ourselves?
Absolutely. Look, for most people, the stresses were out there anyway in our day-to-day environment. We just didn't see them. We weren't aware of them. We were too busy. We were on that fight flight that didn't give us the opportunity to come off. So now, as you say, it's closer to home. So now I have the time to examine. Okay, if I'm anxious, I would say to people, you get up in the morning. If I feel my nervous system is anxious, I know it. I feel a bit jittery. I don't feel quite at ease with myself. I might be talking too quickly. I might shout. So I'm getting all the signs that I'm not settled in myself. The first port of call is yourself and always will be. And how I manage me is actually reflective of how I'm going to manage everything else.
Of course.
So if I start with that premise, and I would say to people, this is very simple, because if you think about it already, we're having to be mindful about washing our hands.
Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. So that's an introduction. I'm bringing my attention just to this process of washing my hands. And it's important that I pay attention where maybe before it was on autopilot. We did that kind of stuff. So now I say to people, you're already started. Now, what else can you bring in your day? It could be a small little thing to be mindful. For me, again, personally, I'm taking more time over food. I'm not in a rush anywhere. They're small things, but all the time I'm building up this self-aware skill of myself, to know myself. What I introduce to people and people have given me feedback, I'd say you're top heavy. Know when you're top heavy. What does that mean? It means there's too much going on in my head. The voice in my head is, not giving me rest. So the nervous system is up in fight and flight, okay? I say bring it back down. I'd say not top heavy, go bottom up. Bottom up is feet. Okay. So I've changed my pattern. I might go around now in bare feet, socks, whatever. When I'm walking, doesn't matter, because I want to confuse the mind that says, has usually first say in everything. Yeah. So I go bottom up. It's a simple thing, I know, but it does make such a difference because I'm changing some pattern. So people have found that helpful. And I'm very much, of course, into the mindful walking, which is a slower process again. I'm concentrating on, taking those steps. Of course, my head is going to say, well, look, I'm doing this anyway, and this is boring. So I go back down again. And then the other thing I introduce all the time would be regulating the respiratory system. Because if I'm in the response mode again and it's triggered, the respiratory is the first one I might notice. And most people will say, I'm tight, I'm caught up, I can't really get into the breath. So these are the signals, and I, if I'm into myself, I can be very much aware and say, well, my body, actually, the biology is such an intelligent part of me. It's giving me signals. Can I listen? Can I be aware? Can I start to notice the signals?
And I suppose mindfulness is a way of recognizing those signals. Because, as you say, often we're so busy and we're doing this, we're doing the other, we're picking up the kids, we're living our lives, and we don't see those signals. We often, you spoke about breathing. Most of us don't breathe properly, I don't think. We tend to breathe far too shallow way, don't we? And in mindfulness, it teaches us to slow down and really breathe properly. And that's one of the things I found from mindfulness is changing the way you breathe.
That's fantastic, and that's a brilliant example. You found that yourself. And again, it's something that when we become aware, we realize the lower lobes are not really being expanded, opened up, oxygenated. Yes. This is life energy we're putting into the body. We're oxygenating it, and we're emptying out the carbon dioxide we don't need. So just think of that move in its own way. It's such a big thing to be able to do. I'm bringing energy into my system, and it's called life. Anything that's sluggish is empty out. And so the more mindful I am around the breathing, I think it's such a lovely way of freshening yourself up. And it takes you again out of the chatter of the mind, the mental field, and the resistance that can be there. So I would always urge people, oh my goodness, use this facility that you've been given right here and enjoy.
And it's one of the simplest mindful exercises to do, isn't it? You can do it anywhere. You just stop, take a minute to notice your breath. Even if it's just for a minute, ground yourself again.
It's such a lovely thing to do, and I think because again the situation we're in, we're becoming very much more aware. I see even when I'm on a walk there, it's curious to watch how people have slowed down even in that process, and so that's affecting, because if we're rushing and running and racing, as you would say, it's affecting that breathing. So I say to people, what's wrong with taking maybe, half an hour interval and take 5 minutes for breath? If you can do it 2 or 3 times a day, you're taking the responsibility now. It's back in your hands. And I think it just has to be the way to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And do you want? Is there anything maybe you could show us that we could do? And there's something that we can do at home? Any exercises or anything that you think you find useful?
Sure, if you like, that's what I call 4 breath breathing. Heart breath is, I give that one to an awful lot of people that would come to me that suffer from anxiety. Because it's a simple breath, and yet it's very effective. So if I could just explain it to you first.
Yeah, well, I can be your guinea pig, Rita, if you like. And we're talking about being mindful. I'm just looking outside here. My son has just chucked a football into the garden, and it just shows you how you can lose your concentration.
That's exactly.
And we said this before we started recording. What's lovely in a way at the moment is we're improvising, and you know what? That's okay, because life is going on around us, isn't it? Even when we're working and doing our things. So.
Absolutely, and yet you have to bring those moments in, because it's life. It's like me with the toe incident.
That's it.
I was grateful to that. In a flash, all of a sudden, I was activated.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. Exactly this. We're keeping it very grounded.
Yeah.
This breath I was talking about. And I do say to people, if you can use it from the nostrils, it's a great way to, because it's a way of kind of slowing down that breath a little bit more. And so I say to people, consciously, find a little place where I just feel I can sit up and I can be comfortable. The spine is always plays a part. Yeah. And then what I would say to people, I'd invite them to close their eyes just a little bit. And I'd say, just listen to this, listen to my voice. So we're paying attention now. We bring the awareness up to the tip of the nose, and we'll just take a natural breath in, but we'll count through it. So I'll count you through this, Barry. So go to the tip of the nose. The breath is going to be cooler to begin with, right? But that's your starting point. And you're breathing up, as I'd call, really, it's like breathing up through the spine. So I'll count you through it. So on the inhalation, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that for 2 at the top of the fountain, and breathe out for 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm going to ask you to hold the breath for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take a breath in and relax. So that breath in and relaxing is an important part. We're regulating, bringing the system into homeostasis. Okay. So again, we go to the tip of the nose, Barry, and we're going to breathe in. And I just like to say on this time, the out breath is slower. So breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4. The top of the fountain, hold for 2. Releasing the breath, exhalation, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in and relax. Let's do another round of that. To the tip of the nose. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Imagine the top of the fountain, holding for 2. Releasing, 4, 3, 2, 1. Holding, 1, 2, 3, 4. Take a breath in and relax. And the last round of 4 breaths, we go to the tip of the nose. We breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 2. Releasing. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing up. Relaxing. And just taking a moment or two, settling into the body, having a sense of how it feels, being very present. And just noticing how the head and your neck and shoulders are right now. And that soft-awareness down through the arms, elbows, and right down into the palms of the hands. And bringing the awareness to any soft, maybe tingling, warm, any other sensations that may be there right now. So we're resting the awareness of ourselves in the hands. Fingertips are very sensitive. Center and palms of the hands. And it's really nice to rest the whole system in one place in the body, even for 1 or 2 moments, the palms of the hands. And gently moving from there into the torso, the sense of the spine, upright, the whole of the body. That sense of real connection, real time, a sense of pressure connecting to the chair, the lower limbs, and reaching right down, becoming familiar with the sensations in the feet, the right and the left foot. Real sense of locking down, of being very present and grounded. Connecting to your breath again. And on the count of 3, opening the eyes. 1, 2, and 3. If we need to move or stretch or whatever. And here we are again.
Now, and always feeling hopefully a little bit more grounded, a little bit aware maybe of what we're feeling in our body, or if there was a bit of a tension in the stomach that we weren't paying attention to, or you know, these are the little things.
This is what I would call, Barry, a taster, you know, for people new that may be just starting to look for something. So we don't complicate it too much. We just say the pointers are, do I recognize when my nervous system is a little bit in overdrive? What can I do? We keep it very simple. We can go into that breath. We can do 4 rounds of breath. We could do it maybe 2 or 3 times a day and keep remembering you're the one that's playing such an important, vital role in your own health, wellness. You're the one taking that responsibility. It really is a very wonderful feeling because our biology and how we're built, it's quite an amazing machine. We just haven't been close enough to recognize and understand it.
Well, one little thing I found very useful is, and it can be done with what you've just shown me there, is that there's some great apps out there. There's one, it's a mindfulness bell. Just look that up. And what it does is, you set it to ring maybe 2 times, 3 times in the day randomly. And when it does, it's just a reminder for you to maybe just stop what you're doing. And notice your breath, notice your body, do a quick body scan like we did there, and just see how we're feeling, see, if there's anything that needs to be attended to.
And just, I think it's really, really helpful when people come up against resistance, because we don't like change too easily. And it's just noticing. I often say to people, just, oh, there it is, there's resistance. I bring it to the awareness, oh, there it is. And the more I do that, the less power it has. It starts to kind of dwindle away. And then I say, no, I want to take responsibility here. I want to play my part as well. It's my body. I'd like to know how it works and what's best.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic, Rita. That's been, really eye-opening, and hopefully the people watching will maybe be able to get something out of this, and I hope what they get most out of it is what you talk about, as being aware of the body, of that nervous system, of just, that's half the battle, is being aware and noticing. Do you know what, today I'm a little bit off colour, or I'm a little bit tense there. And I before we kind of went live, we had a little informal chat about this, and I said, I got up this morning and I was no more in the mood of doing homeschooling, and I recognised it, and I said, you know what, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Exactly. Exactly. So there's a kindness back to yourself, and we forget that, because it's. I always think that we've such a big expectation, of ourselves, and often others as well. So I love that idea that, what, not today. Yeah. We've done enough. Yeah. Isn't there a kindness in that, though?
Yeah, well, I think on day 37 of the lockdown, we can afford to be kind to ourselves a little bit, and we often forget, don't we? The person we're often harshest on is ourselves.
Oh, for sure. And the strange thing is, we can be so compassionate to others. Yeah. We really can. It's really easy to do that. And it's funny, the hard part can be to bring it back in and hold that compassion, even to have a sense of it. I was compassionate to myself. What you did there with the homeschooling, to me, that's an act of compassion. Because our mind might say no, because we're regulated to have do things certain ways. Yeah. We need to interrupt that pattern and say no, it's okay.
Yeah, and parents feel under pressure. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Do you know what I mean? And,
sure.
we do our best. We're in extraordinary circumstances. We do what we can, and we don't have to be superheroes.
But I kind of will go back to the beginning, Barry, because there is, a silver lining in this cloud for all of us at this time. I really do believe this, and we can come out much better from this lockdown, if you want to call it that. We can actually reevaluate our life, our lifestyle. What really makes us happy? How do I understand my system? When I'm feeling grounded, I can be very sure of myself in the world. When I'm not, and it happens, I have a way to support myself. Really important.
And it's important to look at silver linings, and as you say, I think one of the big ones at the moment is we're beginning to, and a lot of people have said this to me, we're beginning to see what's really important. and what's not so important.
It's for sure, for sure. It's just amazing. I could list all the kindnesses, from neighbours and people, and it's brought out something just so gorgeous, And we need to recognise it as we're doing, because otherwise we can stay too long in the cloud. And I would emphasise to people, just remember one thing: we have choice in everything. So if I want to, absorb, the news and what's going on and the coronavirus, I might be taking in too much. I have to know a little to say no, and exercise the right of choice, and particularly now in this time, we have it and we can do it, and this is your self-awareness kicking in again.
That's it. Well, Rita, that's been absolutely fantastic. Thanks a million for joining us via video like this, and we are planning to do a second one, so I've no doubt this is going to help a lot of people who are at home and might be struggling at the moment. And as I remind people when I do my storytelling videos, and I say, better times are ahead. This won't be forever. We'll get through this, and hopefully we'll get through it a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, and maybe a little bit kinder to each other as well.
And the point is, we won't get this day back again. So if I can remain as mindful as I can, I call it self-aware. And if I can, even just a short period of time during this day, something, when that comes out there into the future, I'm not going to be as anxious. I'm going to have a clearer mind. I'll be much more grounded in myself, decisions I want to make. I'll involve me maybe much more in decision making. There's lots and lots in that silver lining that we can start to unearth in this time. So let's see it as an opportunity as well.
I think that's a perfect way to end. Thanks a million for joining us, Rita.
Lovely to speak to you.
Okay.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.